Good morning, dear students. Okay, so today we'll start the second part of this chapter, motion. In last lecture or in previous lecture, we have discussed about the distance. Okay, distance is the total pathway covered by an object is known as distance. We have already talked about scalar quantities and vector quantities. Those quantities which are denoted by only magnitude, or we can say the quantities which are denoted only by the numbers are known as the scalar quantities, and those quantities which are denoted by magnitude as well as direction, then that quantities are known as vector quantities. Okay, now today we continue the concept displacement. Okay, now before starting the displacement, first we'll solve some question related to the concept distance. Okay, so distance is, as we know, that the total pathway covered by an object. Okay, now if I have three positions, that is position A, B and C. Okay, if an object starts its journey from A to B, then B to C and C to A. Okay, if I write A to B is 2 km, B to C is 5 km and C to A is 7 km. Okay, then the question is calculate the total distance covered by an object. Okay, calculate the total distance covered by an object. Okay, solve it. I am giving you 1 minute. Okay, solve it in your notebook. Pause the video and solve. Okay, so the total distance, as we know that the total distance covered by object is known as distance. So the distance traveled by an object, we can solve it as object starts its journey from A to B plus B to C plus C to A, and object traveled the distance 2 km from A to B, 5 km from B to C and 7 km from C to A. So 5 plus 2, 7 plus 7, it is, the answer is 14 km. I hope your answer is already also 14 km. Okay, so the distance, total pathway covered by an object. Okay, if I write a question, okay, if I write a question, okay, suppose any object start its journey from A, okay, and end its journey at A. Okay, if any object start its journey from A and end its journey at A only, then what is the distance covered by the object? Question: what is the distance covered by an object? Okay, for example, the radius is 3 centimeter. The radius is 3 centimeter. So pause the video, solve the question, then I'll give you the solution. Okay, I hope you have got the right answer. See, object start its journey A and again end its journey at point A. That means what? This pathway is a circular, okay, object traveled a circular pathway. Okay, so circular pathway means object traveled around the circumference of circle. Can we say that object traveled around the circumference of circle? So what is the total distance? Total distance traveled by an object. So can I write that the distance traveled by object is equal to the circumference of the circle? Okay, see, object is traveled around the periphery of the circle, and that periphery is known as circumference of the circle. So is equal to circumference of circle. So what is the circumference of circle? I hope you know the formula of circumference of circle. Circumference of circle is 2 pi r. Okay, so 2 into 22 upon 7 into what is radius? Radius is 3. So 2 into 22 is 44 into 3 upon 7. 4 3s are 12. 1 carries 4 3s are 12 plus 1 32 upon 7. Okay, so 32 upon 7 you can divide and get the correct answer. Okay, 4 3s are 12. 1 carries 4 3s are 12 plus 1 13 upon 7. Now I hope you know the division. This is the simple division. You can divide 132 by 7 and you can get the correct answer. Okay, so this is the distance traveled by the object. See, examiner can give you any diagram and he can ask you the distance traveled by the object. If the question is like this, circumference of circle, then you have to calculate the circumference of circle. If the question is A, B, C, D, if any object starts its journey from A to B, B to C, C to D and D to A, then you have to calculate the distance traveled by the object. Now this is rectangle. Okay, this is the rectangle and you can calculate. Suppose the distance is given 2 1 2 1, then you have to simply add and get the distance traveled by the object. Okay, then the next concept we are proceeding towards displacement. The next concept is displacement. I think displacement is fifth quantity. So displacement. What is the meaning of displacement? See, displacement is the shortest pathway or the distance between initial point and final point of an object. Okay, displacement is the distance between the initial point and final point of the object. So what is displacement? Displacement is the shortest pathway or the distance between initial and final point of an object. Okay, displacement is the shortest pathway or the initial point and the final point of the object is known as the displacement. See, displacement and distance, they are separate quantities. In distance we have to calculate the full pathway, total pathway around which the object have traveled. But displacement is little bit different from the distance. Displacement is the shortest pathway or the distance between the initial point and the final point of the object. Let us understand by the example. A, B, C. For example, 3, 4, 5. 3 meters So the distance would be an object traveling distance from A to B, B to C, and C to A. Why? Because what is the definition of distance? Distance is the total pathway covered by an object. So the distance would be A to B, B to C, and C to A. So it would be 3 plus 4 plus 5. 3 plus 4, 7. 7 plus 5 is 12 meter. But what about displacement? Okay. So how we will calculate displacement? So according to the definition, the shortest pathway or the distance between the initial point and final point of an object. Now, displacement. So object starts its journey from A. Okay, object starts its journey from A to B, and B to C, and C to A. So this is the distance. But what about displacement? Displacement is the shortest pathway. Displacement is the shortest pathway. Okay. So if I have to reach on the point C, okay, so I have two options. Okay, I have two options to reach at point C. Either I will go to the point B and B to C. Okay, I have two options. First option would be I will travel to B, then B to C. Okay, but the shortest pathway to reach at point C is this one. Okay, by this way also I can reach at point C. So as I have told you, I have two options. Either I can go from A to B and B to C. That is 3 kilometers, 3 meters and 4 meters I have to travel. But I can choose a second way, that is shortcut way or the shorter way. I have to reach at C, so I will direct travel to the C by this way. Okay, so this is displacement. Okay, we have to choose the shortest pathway. We have to choose the shortest pathway, and the shortest pathway is known as the displacement. Okay, displacement, or the distance between initial point and final point. Initial point is A and final point is C. Okay, so if I have to calculate displacement, the definition of displacement is the distance between initial point and final point. So the displacement would be from A to C. This is the shortest pathway. Okay, and this 5 meters. So the two questions can be asked related to this diagram. Calculate the total distance, then I have to calculate the full distance, 3 plus 4 plus 5. But if they asked displacement, then we have to choose the shortest pathway or the distance between the initial point and final point. Initial point and final point is 5 meters. Clear? So displacement, the SI unit of displacement is also meter. Okay, and it is displacement is vector quantity. Why displacement is vector quantity? Displacement is a vector quantity because there are initial point and final point. Okay, initial point and final point. For example, I have to cover a distance of 5 meters. Okay, and 2 points are fixed. For example, I have to walk 5 kilometers or 5 meters from the school to my house. The school is the initial point and house is the final point. Okay, so if the 2 points are given, initial point and final point, then I have to follow the direction. Because if 2 points are given, that is initial point and final point, then we have to follow the direction also. Okay, see, if I will follow a proper direction, then only I will go to my house. Okay, from school to house. If I do not follow a proper direction, then I can move or I can go to my friend's house or another house. So when the initial point or final points are given, then we have to follow the direction For example, this is the initial point and C is the final point. So the object should strictly follow this direction. If the object have to move from A to C, okay, from A to C, initial point and final point, then the object strictly follow this pathway, then only he can reach on point C directly. Okay, so displacement is the distance between initial point and final point. Therefore, the displacement is known as vector quantity, because in displacement we are following the direction as well as the magnitude. Therefore, displacement is the vector quantity. Now, very famous question in examination can be asked: what is the difference between the distance and displacement? So we'll distinguish between distance and displacement. Distance and displacement. Okay. Now, first, distance is the total pathway covered by an object, okay, and displacement, the distance between initial and final point. Okay, now distance is scalar quantity, displacement is vector quantity. Okay, then distance can never be negative and displacement distance can never be zero. Okay, distance can never be zero. Displacement can be zero, positive or negative. See, distance can never be zero. Okay, distance can never be zero, but the displacement can be zero, positive or negative. Okay, then displacement can be zero or positive, not we are writing negative, because to calculate the displacement we are not taking the negative terms. Okay, we'll see in the example why we are not taking the negative terms. So the distance can be zero, but displacement can be zero or positive. Okay, now distance can be equal or greater than displacement. Okay, distance can be equal to the displacement or greater than displacement, but displacement can never be greater than distance. Okay, what we can say, distance and displacement, the total pathway covered by an object, the distance between initial point and final point. It is scalar quantity, it is vector quantity. Distance can never be zero, displacement can be zero or positive. Distance can be equal to or greater than displacement. See, distance can be equal to displacement or greater than displacement, but displacement can never be greater than distance. Displacement can never be greater than distance, because what is displacement? Displacement is the distance between initial point and final point only. but the distance is total pathway covered by an object. Therefore, displacement can never be greater than 0. So this is the difference between the distance and displacement. You can pause the video and you can write the difference between the distance and displacement. I am giving you 1 minute. Write it fast. So students, I hope you have written the difference between the distance and displacement, and I hope you have understood what we have learned today. Okay, so this was all for today's lecture. Next part of this chapter will continue tomorrow. Thank you.